The battlefield falls into a heavy, suffocating silence as the tide of the duel takes a horrific, supernatural turn. Count Desmond stands broken, his right arm severed and Gislin's blade buried deep within his chest, yet he does not fall. Instead, a terrifying, viscous dark aura begins to seep from his wounds, coiling around him like ink in water. Jagged bolts of dark lightning crackle through the air, illuminating the desperation in his eyes as he locks onto Gislin's position. In a display of raw, terrifying willpower, Desmond reaches out with his remaining left hand, gripping the cold steel of the blade protruding from his own ribs. With a guttural roar and a surge of primal strength, he snaps the mana-reinforced sword in two as if it were nothing more than a brittle twig. Gislin watches in genuine disbelief, his breath hitching as he witnesses a man who should be dead continue to exert such overwhelming pressure. The logic of combat has been discarded. Desmond is no longer moving through muscle and bone, but through sheer, unadulterated malice. As the dark aura intensifies, threatening to swallow the very light around them, Gislin instinctively leaps back. He puts several meters of distance between himself and this new, monstrous version of the Count, his mind racing to process the impossibility of what he just saw. Staring down at the jagged remains of a shattered weapon, Gislin feels a cold sweat prickle his skin. He wonders to himself how any human could possess the sheer brute force required to shatter a blade completely enveloped in high-density mana. It defies the laws of their world. He calls out to Desmond, his voice tight with a mixture of anger and growing apprehension, demanding to know the source of this grotesque power. Desmond doesn't answer with words at first. Instead, the lightning around him grows more violent. In the center of his chest, precisely where the sword had pierced him, the mana begins to collapse inward, forming a swirling, golden vortex that looks like a miniature black hole. Blood continues to spray from his severed shoulder, soaking into the earth, but Desmond ignores the agony. He staggers toward his own fallen sword, his eyes fixed on Gislin with a murderous clarity. He mutters that he never intended to reveal the forbidden strength granted to him by the ducal house in a place like this. But he realizes now that exposing his dark secret is a far better fate than meeting his end at Gislin's feet. The heavy plates of Desmond's armor begin to buckle and fall away, hitting the dirt with a hollow metallic clang as his body overflows with taboo energy. His eyes ignite with an unnatural, piercing glow, and the black hole in his chest pulses with a rhythmic, haunting light. He stares through Gislin, declaring that they have both passed the point of no return. Before the words can even echo across the clearing, Desmond vanishes. He moves with supersonic velocity, a blurred streak of darkness that shatters the sound barrier. He lunges at Gislin, swinging his blade with enough force to cleave a mountain. Gislin's reflexes, honed through a lifetime of slaughter, barely save him as he raises his axe just in time to catch the blow. The impact is tectonic, sending a shockwave through the ground that kicks up a wall of dust. Still suspended in the air from the momentum of his own charge, Desmond displays a terrifying level of kinetic control. He spins his body mid-flight, using the centripetal force to launch a secondary strike from a blind angle. Once again, the metallic shriek of steel on iron rings out as Gislin parries, his boots carving deep furrows into the soil as he is pushed back. Gritting his teeth, Gislin attempts to seize the initiative, launching a rapid-fire sequence of counterattacks, but Desmond's movements have become fluid, almost precognitive. The Count parries every single strike with an air of cold superiority. He tells Gislin that his efforts are utterly futile. He effortlessly bats away 2 frontal assaults and expertly deflects a third, closing the distance until they are chest to chest. Desmond sneers, claiming that every movement Gislin makes and every attack he conceives is laid bare before his eyes. The power gap has become a chasm. Desmond finds a microscopic opening and slashes Gislin across the chest, the blade drawing a bright line of crimson. He follows up instantly with a horizontal sweep, but Gislin narrowly evades the killing blow by spinning his body backward in a desperate acrobatic maneuver. Seeing a fleeting chance, Gislin executes a powerful taekwondo kick aimed squarely at the Count's temple. It is a strike delivered with perfect form, but Desmond simply tilts his head, letting the foot whistle past his ear. The Count counters with a lightning-fast back kick of his own, striking with the weight of a battering ram. Gislin manages to brace his axe against the blow, but the sheer kinetic energy sends him reeling backward, his arms vibrating from the force. Internal alarm bells are screaming in Gislin's head. He realizes that this is a losing game. Every one of his tactical strikes is being neutralized before they can even land. He simply cannot match the defensive reaction speed Desmond now possesses. But the Count isn't finished. He doesn't give Gislin a single second to recover his breath. Screaming that no amount of skill can overcome the absolute power he now wields, Desmond charges again. Gislin pours every ounce of his mana into a heavy axe swing, aiming to crush the Count's defense through pure weight, but Desmond skillfully parries the head of the axe and redirects the force into the ground. He follows through with a vicious counterthrust that Gislin barely catches on the shaft of his weapon. Gislin tries to transition into a low, sweeping strike to take out the Count's legs, but Desmond is already a step ahead. He knocks the axe upward with a brutal flick of his wrist, sending Gislin's guard flying high and leaving his entire torso exposed. Desmond seizes the moment, driving his blade deep into Gislin's right leg. Blood spatters the grass as Gislin winces in pain. Desmond immediately transitions into a crushing overhead strike intended to split Gislin in two. In a desperate, last-second roll, Gislin escapes the direct hit, though the Count's blade still manages to tear through his cloak, severing the heavy fabric as if it were silk. The two warriors engage in a frantic, high-speed exchange, their weapons clashing dozens of times per second. For a brief, flickering moment, they lock eyes in a clinch, the air between them ionizing from the friction of their mana. Desmond suddenly drops low, aiming a devastating strike at Gislin's injured legs. Gislin responds by flipping through the air, merrily avoiding the blade. While still inverted, he attempts to bring his axe down on Desmond's head, but the Count blocks it and readies a thrust for the exact moment Gislin's feet touch the dirt. Gislin, anticipating the trap, ducks into a low crouch and swings for Desmond's shins, but the Count effortlessly leaps over the arc of the axe. The tension reaches a breaking point as they stand frozen for a heartbeat, staring each other down. Gislin pours his remaining strength into a massive lateral swing, a strike meant to end the fight then and there. To his absolute horror, Desmond doesn't even dodge. He pins the axe head against the ground with his sword and delivers a brutal front kick directly into Gislin's solar plexus. The sound of ribs cracking echoes across the field as Gislin is sent hurtling through the air, coughing up a spray of blood. He is completely defenseless, his momentum carrying him away from his weapon. Desmond begins to charge a final, decisive blow, his face twisted in a mask of triumph. He declares that the end has arrived, and that Gislin has officially lost. In the stands, the atmosphere is one of pure terror. Gislin's father, Walter, watches with a pale face, while Claude and Kair stand paralyzed by the sheer scale of the destruction. Only Lucas keeps his head. Seeing Gislin in midair and unarmed, Lucas draws his own sword and hurls it across the battlefield with perfect aim. Gislin, even while reeling from the kick, reaches out his hand as if he had sensed the weapon coming all along. But time is running out. Desmond's blade is inches away from Gislin's throat, and a massive, blinding explosion erupts where the two men collide, obscuring everything in a cloud of golden and black smoke. Away from the carnage, Cain Balzac and José observe the fallout from a distance. Cain's expression is grim as he notes that Desmond has finally unleashed that power. José asks for clarification, wondering if he means the forbidden strength obtained through a dark pact with them. Cain nods, explaining that while the mana circulation method is fundamentally incomplete and unstable, its effects are undeniable. It allows a human to momentarily break the shackles of their own physical limits, reaching a realm of power that shouldn't exist. José realizes the danger, noting that if Desmond is truly using that strength, Gislin is in an impossible situation. However, Cain remains focused on a different, more troubling detail. He wonders why Gislin's own mana seems to share the exact same nature as this forbidden, demonic power. The scene shifts back to the crater on the battlefield. As the dust settles, Gislin is revealed to be standing, his hand gripped firmly around the hilt of Lucas's sword. He successfully parried Desmond's killing blow at the very last microsecond. Desmond is gasping for air, his face drenched in sweat and disbelief. He cannot comprehend how a human could block a full power strike fueled by the forbidden core. Gislin is also breathing heavily, his body trembling from the strain. He admits that the power is indeed absurd, noting that even with 3 of his own cores open, the pressure is almost too much to handle. He reflects on his past life, realizing that when he killed Desmond before, he had done so with a single, swift strike to the waist, never giving the Count the chance to activate this transformation. Memories of the past flicker through Gislin's mind. He recalls others who utilized this specific, volatile brand of mana, notably the Raging Vanessa, who employed a nearly identical circulation technique. He looks Desmond in the eye and tells him coldly that he has faced enemies far more terrifying than a mere Count. He declares that if his current level of power is insufficient to bridge the gap, then he will simply have to evolve right here, right now. A brilliant, blinding light begins to emanate from Gislin's chest. With a sudden, explosive surge of mana, he shoves Desmond back, creating a pocket of space. Gislin explains that since the nature of Desmond's mana is so similar to his own, it provides the perfect catalyst to forge a new core. He closes his eyes, centering his spirit as he prepares to expand the vessel of his soul to contain the energy of the world itself. He focuses on dampening the internal shockwaves that would normally tear a man apart, and with a roar of determination, he commands his 4th core to open. An astronomical pillar of mana erupts from Gislin, forming a shimmering, impenetrable sphere of energy around him. Desmond is frozen, his confidence shattered as he watches the impossible unfold before his eyes. Cold sweat pours down his face as he recognizes the pattern of the mana, a pattern that should not belong to a mere mortal. Gislin drops into a low, lethal stance, the sword from Lucas now glowing with a fierce, sun-like yellow radiance. He asks Desmond if he can still see his attacks, his voice echoing with the weight of a god. He tells the Count to watch closely, for this will be the last thing he ever sees. Gislin vanishes. He doesn't just move fast, he tears through the fabric of space itself. For a billionth of a second, Desmond sees his own terrified reflection in the polished steel of the blade. There is no time to scream, no time to parry, and no time to regret. Ghislain passes through him like a ghost, and the Count is cleaved perfectly in half, his body falling in 2 separate pieces as the shockwave of the strike finally catches up, shattering the ground for 50 meters behind him. In the silence that follows, Cain Balzac watches the finality of the strike. He muses that if Desmond, even with his forbidden power, couldn't take Ghislain's life, then the world is facing a new kind of monster. Joseph can only ask one final, trembling question. Exactly how deep does Ghislain's awakening truly go?